Tonight, we return to a time when silence clung to the streets like mist, when vinegar soaked the windowsills, and sleep, if it ever came, was a fragile mercy more precious than gold. But inside a small, drafty room, life continues in its slow and stubborn way. This is not a tale of kings with crowns or generals with maps. No one charges into battle here. No one makes bold speeches. What we have instead is a pair of sore feet, a pot of thin soup, and a straw mattress that smells faintly of fear and damp wool. The year is 1348. Somewhere beyond the city walls, the world feels like it's falling apart. The space between the market closing and the bell tolling. It's a breeze, a silence, a glance you try not to hold for too long. It is worry tucked into every chore, and hope hidden in the rhythm of routine. Of people who still folded laundry, stirred their soup, whispered short prayers, and hoped the next cough came from the neighbor's house and not their own. Let your breath fall into step with a time long gone, and drift into the gentle rhythms of a day that asked very little of you, only that you endure, and maybe, if the night was kind, that you sleep. This is the story of those quiet hours between survival and surrender. Here, the Great Plague is not a monster crashing through doors, so lie back. Let the blankets gather around your shoulders. Chapter 1. A bed of straw, 2 rats, and a prayer. I wake up to the sound of nothing again. Not silence exactly. More like that peculiar emptiness that settles when the living go quiet. The kind that makes your ears ring with the effort of listening. The rooster next door hasn't crowed in 3 days. I tell myself he's just tired. I don't ask about the neighbor. The straw beneath me is damp, not from fresh rain. I turned it yesterday and even scattered dried lavender to pretend it helped. But the dampness lingers, always a little sour, always clinging to the fabric and my skin. He's found a home under the stool, nibbling crumbs I'm too tired to sweep. We all have routines now. It's gone gray along the edges. I scrape away the fuzz and dip it into warm ale. Not good ale, just warm and vaguely bitter. It used to be for guests. Now it's breakfast. It's more a habit than a song. The only music I have left. I shift and something crunches beneath me. Probably Thomas, the beetle. He's been with me all week. I tell him good morning. He runs in slow circles, the cloth dragging behind him like a tired ghost. I don't laugh, but I do watch. I've sewn the same patch on my apron, even though it doesn't need fixing. It smells like smoke and soap, and something I want to believe is comfort. Not yet. Sometimes you need to mend something, just to remember you still can. Between breaths, between hours, between everything and nothing. With garlic and flowers and wedding bells that rang too long. But the memory slips before I can hold it. There's something in the trying that feels familiar. It's the only flicker that doesn't frighten me anymore. He never responds, but his company is oddly comforting. The window is open just enough to tempt the breeze, though the breeze never comes. A cloth soaked in vinegar hangs there. They say it helps. Just whispering something to the stones. Maybe prayer, maybe nothing. The vinegar is meant to keep out the bad air. At this point, it's more like a ritual. Just the quiet rustle of leaves and the sound of footsteps too soft to follow. The room smells like sour soup left too long in the pot. 2 rats scurry near the hearth. One stops and looks at me, old and unbothered. I call him Gregory. I wash linens, even though no one visits anymore. Even though I wear the same dress day after day. I scrub until the water clouds with ash and suds. I fold what I clean. I stack it neatly. No one sees it but me. It's not for show. It's for rhythm. I chew the crust of yesterday's bread. Outside, the street holds a stillness that feels unnatural. No merchants shouting. No barking dogs. No boys swinging sticks and screaming nonsense. The priest passes by again. That's the second time today. There's no bell with him, so he's not delivering last rites. I go about my day like always. I hum while I work, though the tune has long unraveled. Outside the window, a boy tries to fly a kite without wind. By now, I've swept the same patch of floor 3 times. As dusk falls, I light a candle with the stub of another. The flame stutters at first, then holds. I stare at it. I lie down again on the same straw. Damp, scratchy, persistent. I pull the wool blanket up to my chin. I listen. A single cough in the distance, and another, fainter. None from this room. I close my eyes and try to remember summer. Real summer. Loud and sweaty. So I rest, not quite asleep, not quite awake, just floating, waiting for morning, and hoping it brings no news. Chapter 2. Agnes the Candlemaker and the Long Week. Agnes doesn't like silence, but lately it has become her most faithful companion. She lives in a narrow home 2 streets over from what used to be the market square. The wooden sign above her door still reads, "Candles and Wax Threads," though no one stops to read it anymore. Not since the bread sellers left. Not since the music ended. The square is a hollow echo of what it was. Empty stalls, broken crates, and a blanket of dust that no footstep dares disturb. Her home is dim but warm. It smells of tallow, rosemary, old wool, and the faintest hint of smoke that never quite leaves the walls. There are 12 candles on the shelf. None of them are for sale. Each morning arrives the same way, gray and quiet. Agnes wakes before the sun peeks through the shutters, as she always has. The light dances weakly across the stone floor. It's not much, but it's enough to see the familiar shape of her little room. The bench by the hearth, the dented pot in the corner, the wooden box where she keeps dried herbs wrapped in old cloth. She sits up slowly, easing her knees with a sigh and muttering a greeting to her joints, like old friends who never left, but often misbehave. Sometimes a dog trots by. Sometimes a man with a cart, face wrapped in cloth. Certainty that no one is buying and that light, now more than ever, must be made, not sold. Once, last week, a child ran past barefoot. Agnes smiled for nearly 10 minutes after that. She scours the pot with salt and mutters under her breath about how soap used to be stronger, how candles used to be straighter, how someone once traded 2 eggs and a riddle for a taper. She doesn't remember the riddle, but she remembers laughing. But Agnes still places a crust on the stoop every evening, just in case. A hush settles again, but this one feels softer, as though it too has come to sit by the fire. Hope, like wax, softens slowly but hardens again with time. A low, tuneless hum that keeps her company while she waits for the wax to set. She places it carefully into the wooden holder on the mantel. The flame is small, but steady. But beeswax hasn't been seen in the village since the baker's boy vanished. So now it's pig tallow, melted slow and stirred with a heavy spoon that once stirred porridge for her children, long before they moved 2 towns away. Or was it 3? She lights the stub of last night's candle with a sliver of straw, careful not to waste the flame. Agnes prefers beeswax, of course, always has. It's cleaner, sweeter, more cooperative. She adds a pinch of dried lavender, just enough to trick the nose into thinking it's comfort. The lavender was a gift from a midwife who never came back for more candles. Agnes thinks of her when the scent rises. The wax cools unevenly, but Agnes doesn't mind. She hangs them on the same rope line by the window she's used for 30 years. Some lean, some wobble. The candle making itself is slow, methodical, 1 layer at a time. Dip and turn, dip and turn. She speaks to them anyway. "You'll do better next time," she tells one. "Don't let your shoulders slump like that." Her voice is soft, scratchy from lack of use, but still carries kindness. Not just for the candles, for herself too. Lunch is usually thin broth and a heel of bread. eaten beside the window with a view of absolutely nothing. She hasn't sold a candle in weeks, but the coins in her jar are untouched, not out of wealth, but out of certainty. She still leaves bread out for the cat, a gray striped thing with a torn ear that hasn't been seen since the baker shut his door. By Thursday, the tallow runs low. Agnes doesn't laugh much anymore, but she hums. On the 7th night, as she has every week for as long as she can remember, Agnes lights one of her newest candles. She sits beside it, hands resting in her lap. Outside, the wind moves through the shutter gaps. Agnes doesn't say a word. She doesn't need to. The room glows, the wax holds, and the long week finally ends. Chapter 3. The smell of vinegar and rosemary. No one really knows why rosemary became a favorite. Maybe it was the scent, sharp, green, insistent. It doesn't ask permission to linger. Or maybe it was how it grows. Tough little leaves on tougher little stems, clinging to life even when the soil forgets to be kind. In my house, we hang bundles of it from the ceiling beams, one above the hearth, one above the bed, one tucked behind the door, like it's guarding us. I stitched a sprig into my pillow. It pokes the side of my face when I turn, a little reminder that we're still trying. We try vinegar too. Less poetic, much less friendly. It bites the nose. It hovers in the air like a bad idea you can't take back. Place dishes of it beneath the windows. Dab a little behind my ears, like perfume made by someone who hates joy. But the apothecary swears by it, says it clears the bad airs, the invisible filth that drifts on the wind between one cough and the next. I soak rags in it and drape them over the chair legs. The house smells like a meal gone wrong, like hope left too long in the sun. People are selling pomanders now, round metal charms stuffed with cloves, rosemary, orange peel. They're like little prisons for fragrance, designed to keep fear out. I saw a woman wearing hers on a ribbon, pressed close to her chest, like a shield, or a memory. I haven't bought one, but sometimes I go to the market and just breathe near the vendor's stall. They don't mind. Business is slow. Everything is slow. I keep it warm during the day and hold it at night. There are charms too. Not magical, of course, just gestures. Things you do because not doing them would feel like giving up. I've tied a red thread from my mother's apron around the bedpost. 3 knots. No reason, just tradition. It's faded now, worn by time or steam or the weight of looking at it too often. There's a small stone near the hearth, shaped like a teardrop. Behind the cupboard, someone, maybe my grandmother, carved a prayer into the wall. They crush mint with ash and scrub until their arms ache. Sometimes I think that means it worked. The sting of mint on skin reminds you you're still here. Last week, a man in a mask pinged down the road, beaked and silent, like a bird from a dream you only half remember. He didn't knock, just scattered herbs at each doorstep, then vanished. They say he's a doctor. They say he's dead. They say lots of things. At the bathhouse, the last few women still boil water. No one's trying to be clean anymore, just awake, just real. And me? I boil rosemary when I'm anxious. A little pot on the coals, bubbling softly, scent rising like a question with no answer. Maybe it helps. Maybe it doesn't. But it gives my hands something to do besides ring. These aren't cures. They're comforts. The plague doesn't care about rosemary or vinegar or whether your charms rhyme. But I do them anyway, because they remind me that we're still here, still trying, still breathing through the burn. And sometimes that's all the healing we have left. Chapter 4. The wealthy slept on clean linen. Some say the rich left early. They packed their silks, their salt, and their second-best mattresses, then slipped quietly through city gates long before the rest of us understood what silence really meant. And maybe they did. Gentle hills fold into one another. dotted with olive trees and quiet groves. The air feels clearer there, less crowded, less urgent. If you squint, the distance almost looks peaceful. Far beyond the ash-choked chimneys and vinegar-soaked shutters of the city, the countryside stretches out like a faded fresco. There, atop those hills, villas sit like dozing cats, half watching the world unravel below. Their windows are open, not shuttered. Their rooms face the sun, something you might confuse with hope if you weren't careful. Or maybe soft laughter over a second bowl of soup, not because they're hungry, but because eating gives shape to the day. They do not boil water with urgency. They recommend it politely while wearing gloves. Every sill is lined with dried citrus peel and pressed lavender. They draw warm baths in copper tubs and lay out linen nightshirts with hand-stitched initials. The floors are swept with rosemary bundles. The rugs are thick, the servants quiet, and the air inside smells of something entirely different. Not smoke or mold or vinegar, but beeswax and pine. They discuss what cities to avoid and which saints might be in vogue for protection this week. A third has hired a harpist solely to play lullabies in the corridor every evening before sleep. If you listened through their thick stone walls, you might hear the clink of cutlery or the hum of a bored flute. Their physicians do not rush. They carry polished instruments. They write things down. A bell still rings for dinner. Music still hums after dark. The same 6 books are read, again and again, not because they are interesting, but because they are familiar. They use words like miasma and humors, and prescribe diluted wine and mountain air. They do not scrub linens until their hands bleed. In these homes, the servants light jasmine-scented candles at dusk. The pillows are plump, the sheets are smooth, and no one has to flip the mattress because it smells too strongly of fear. Their routines, though altered, remain intact. Not truly. Some noble families have even begun to host small gatherings, quiet, distant affairs in rose gardens or tiled courtyards. They drink lightly. They speak softly. I heard one family has begun painting again. Another keeps a pet monkey. Their lives continue, not untouched, but cushioned, not immune, but insulated. And somewhere inside all that stillness, a young noblewoman writes verses about twilight. Her ink does not smudge. I keep my rosemary sprig by the window, its leaves curling toward the pale light of tomorrow. In another villa, a tired air scratches nonsense tunes on a lute, pretending to compose. They build hedges into mazes, not to lose themselves, only to pass time. And what of sleep? Whether you sleep under silk or under straw, the dark comes softly. I imagine their dreams are pale and neat. Not like mine. Mine come with footsteps, creaks, the cough I am always bracing for. Their dreams might smell of rosewater. Mine smell of boiled linen and smoke. Still, I don't resent them. I've learned that comfort, even when unevenly distributed, is still a kind of survival. And survival takes many forms. For me, it's boiling water I don't need, stitching clothes I won't wear, whispering prayers no one hears. For them, it's pretending this is temporary, lighting candles that smell like lemon, drawing the curtain just so. So yes, the wealthy sleep on clean linen. Their dreams are tucked in tightly. Their dread wears perfume. But here, in my small corner, I settle under a blanket rough with use, but warm with memory. It is not grand, but it grows anyway. And the night, ever patient, wraps itself around us both. And in sleep, no one dreams louder than anyone else. And now, the candle has nearly given up. Its little flame flutters low, casting long shadows on the uneven wall, like quiet ghosts that mean no harm. Outside, the street has folded itself into silence. No carts, no footsteps, not even the stray tap of a shutter in the wind. Only the faint creak of wood, cooling, and the breath of night pressing against the stone. The linen I hung earlier stiffens on the line, swaying gently, as if trying to remember what wind used to feel like before the world grew still. Thomas, the beetle, has retreated back beneath the straw. I imagine him settling in too, beneath some invisible crack, dreaming of breadcrumbs and quiet corners. And me, I'm here, still breathing, still folding laundry that doesn't need folding, still listening for a rooster that may or may not remember to crow. You've wandered far tonight, through vinegar-soaked windows and stiff aprons, through silent alleyways and slow-sweeping kitchens, through the spaces between coughs, between fears, between fragile hopes that still manage to rise each morning with the sun. You've felt the weight of wool blankets and the ache of cold floors. You've met candle makers and noble daydreamers. You've smelled rosemary pressed against the glass and linen hung to dry in the absence of certainty. And you've learned, in this long, quiet walk through the past, that sleep in times like those was never taken for granted. It was a kind of bravery, a small rebellion, a soft, stubborn promise that the world would still be here when your eyes opened again. And now you're here, centuries away, wrapped in your own blankets, in a room with no coughing behind walls, no beetles to name, no vinegar on the windowsill, just stillness and breath and safety. So rest easy, traveler. You've survived another night. The bells are not tolling. The fire is out. And the morning, as always, is on its way. Sleep well.